Crisis at Old Trafford. When your manager has nothing left to say. Welcome to United News, the only source you need for honest, reliable Manchester United coverage. While other websites sugarcoat the truth or chase clicks with false hope, we tell you exactly what is happening at our club. The good, the bad, and the absolutely shocking. When United are in crisis, we do not pretend everything is fine. When there are serious problems, we investigate and explain them properly. That is why United News has become the most trusted voice for Manchester United fans who want the real story, not fairy tales. Today we need to talk about something that no United fan wanted to see but everyone needs to understand. What happens when your manager runs out of words? What happens when a shock defeat reveals problems so deep that even the coach cannot explain them? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of our club? The night that changed everything. Tuesday night at Grimsby Town was supposed to be routine. A Carabao Cup tie against a fourth-tier team should have been a comfortable victory for Manchester United. Instead, it became the night when everything fell apart and the harsh reality of our situation became impossible to ignore. But this was not just another disappointing result. This was the night when Ruben Amorim, our manager who has always had the right words and the perfect analysis, admitted he had nothing to say. When your manager gives up trying to explain what went wrong, you know the problems run much deeper than anyone imagined. What really happened at Grimsby? And why are Amorim's words after the match so alarming for every United fan? The match that exposed everything. How it all went wrong. Let us start with what actually happened during the match itself, because the scoreline does not tell the full story of this disaster. Manchester United went to Grimsby expecting a comfortable victory against opposition from League Two, that is the fourth tier of English football. These are part-time players, men who work regular jobs during the week and play football on weekends. Instead, United found themselves 2-0 down within the first half hour. Charles Vernam and Tyrell Warren, players most United fans had never heard of, scored 2 goals in 8 minutes to shock the Premier League giants. But here is what made it even worse. These were not lucky goals or deflections. Grimsby outplayed United for large parts of the match. They showed more intensity, more desire, and more organization than the team that cost hundreds of millions of pounds to assemble. United eventually fought back with goals from Brian Bumo and Harry Maguire to force the match into a penalty shootout. But even that small recovery could not hide the embarrassing reality of what had happened. The penalty shootout itself became another nightmare. After an incredible 23 penalties, Grimsby finally won 12-11 when Matheus Cunha had his shot saved and Bumo hit the post. But the most shocking part was not the defeat itself. It was how United's players performed throughout the entire match, the performance that spoke volumes. According to Amorim's own analysis, United started the match without any intensity or pressure. They were completely lost on the pitch, unable to implement even the basic ideas that the manager had been working on in training. This was not about tactics or formations or individual mistakes. This was about mentality, desire, and the fundamental question of whether United's players actually want to play football at the required level. Amorim said that his players spoke really loudly with their performance, and what they said was not what any United fan wanted to hear. When a manager uses language like this, it means the problems go far beyond football. It means there are issues with attitude, commitment, and professional pride that no amount of coaching can fix. The moment Amorim lost his words. The most alarming moment came in Amorim's post-match press conference, when he said something that should terrify every United fan. I would like to say very smart things and very important things. I have nothing to say. Nothing to say. That is the biggest problem also. To see the same mistakes and nothing to say in this moment. Think about what this means. Ruben Amorim is a highly intelligent coach who has succeeded everywhere he has been. He always has analysis, explanations, and plans for improvement. But after watching his team lose to Grimsby, he admitted he had nothing left to say. When your manager reaches this point, you know the situation is serious. This is not frustration about tactics or individual errors. This is a coach admitting that he has run out of ideas for how to motivate his players. What Amorim's words really mean. The translation. When football managers speak to the media, they often use coded language to avoid creating bigger problems. but sometimes their frustration becomes so great that their real feelings break through. Amorim's statement that the players spoke really loudly about what they want needs translation. What he is really saying is that his players showed through their performance that they do not want to fight for him, for the club, or even for themselves. When he says, something has to change and you're not going to change 22 players again, he is pointing out that United cannot keep solving problems by buying new players. The issues run deeper than personnel. His comment about having nothing to say reveals a manager who has tried everything he can think of and seen no improvement in his players' mentality. The historical context. To understand how serious this situation is, we need to remember that United have been here before. Manager after manager has reached the point where they lose faith in their players. Jose Mourinho famously said his players lacked football maturity and football intelligence. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer talked about needing better players and questioned his squad's mentality. Erik ten Hag struggled with the same issues before being replaced. Now Amorim, who was supposed to be different, who was supposed to transform the club's culture, is using similar language. This suggests that the problems at United are not about individual managers but about deeper institutional issues. The timing makes it worse. What makes Amorim's comments even more concerning is the timing. United have just invested heavily in new attacking players during the summer transfer window. Cunha, Bumo, Sesko, and potentially Lamens represent significant investments in the squad. The expectation was that these additions would help Amorim implement his vision and improve United's performances. Instead, just weeks after these signings, the manager is already talking about fundamental changes being needed. This suggests that buying new players has not solved the underlying problems. The players who let everyone down. The new signings under pressure. Some of the most disappointing aspects of the Grimsby defeat involved United's new signings, who were supposed to bring fresh energy and mentality to the team. Matheus Cunha, one of United's major summer additions, missed the crucial penalty that ended United's involvement in the competition. For a player brought in to provide composure and quality in big moments, this was exactly the opposite of what was expected. Bryan Bumo scored one of United's goals but also missed in the penalty shootout. While his goal showed his quality, the penalty miss highlighted the mental fragility that seems to affect so many United players in pressure situations. These are not criticisms of individual players but observations about the environment at United that seems to make even good players perform below their capabilities. The mentality problem. What Amorim saw at Grimsby was not a team having a bad day. It was a group of players who did not show the basic requirements of professional football. Intensity, desire, organization, and pride in the shirt are not tactical concepts that need to be taught. These are fundamental attitudes that every professional player should have automatically. When players cannot show these qualities against fourth-tier opposition, it reveals problems that go far beyond what any coach can solve with training sessions or team talks. The repeat offenders. Amorim's comment about seeing the same mistakes suggests that these issues have been ongoing throughout his time at United. This is particularly concerning because Amorim has had several months to work with his players and implement his ideas. If the same problems keep appearing, it suggests that either the players cannot learn or they are choosing not to apply what they have been taught. For any manager, repeatedly seeing the same errors and poor attitudes is incredibly frustrating and ultimately unsustainable. The bigger picture at United. A pattern of failure. The Grimsby defeat needs to be seen in the context of United's recent history, because this type of shock result has become far too common. Under different managers, with different players, United have consistently failed to perform against supposedly weaker opposition. This suggests that the problems are institutional rather than related to specific individuals. Whether it is losing to lower league teams in cup competitions, dropping points against relegated sides in the Premier League, or failing to show up in big matches, United have developed a pattern of underperforming when expectations are highest. The transfer strategy questions. United's heavy investment in new players during the summer now looks even more questionable given the performance against Grimsby. If spending tens of millions on new attackers has not solved the basic problems of intensity and mentality, what will it take to turn things around? This raises serious questions about United's approach to squad building and whether they are addressing the right issues when they spend money on transfers. The coaching challenge. Amorim's situation at United highlights one of the biggest challenges in modern football management. What do you do when your players simply will not respond to your methods? Even the best coaches in the world cannot succeed if their players do not buy into their vision and work ethically. Football is ultimately a team sport that requires collective commitment and effort. When that commitment is missing, as it clearly was at Grimsby, no amount of tactical genius or motivational speeches can compensate. What this means for Amorim's future. The February crisis. According to reports, Amorim was already seriously considering leaving United back in February due to his frustration with performances and the working environment. He received assurances from the club's leadership about transfer targets and future plans, which convinced him to stay and continue his project. But the Grimsby defeat suggests that those assurances have not translated into the improvements that Amorim was promised and expected. The sack can be liberating. Amorim's previous comment that getting sacked can be liberating now takes on new significance given his current situation at United. When managers start talking about liberation through dismissal, it usually means they are finding their current job incredibly stressful and unrewarding. This is concerning for United fans because it suggests that Amorim might not be fully committed to the long-term project if he continues to face the same problems. Contract versus reality. Amorim signed a contract through 2027 with an option for another year, which should provide stability for the club's long-term planning. However, contracts mean very little in football if the relationship between manager and club breaks down due to poor results and fundamental disagreements about direction. The bigger question is whether Amorim still believes he can succeed at United or whether he is already looking for an exit strategy. The fan reaction and expectations. Embarrassment and anger. United fans' reactions to the Grimsby defeat have been a mixture of embarrassment, anger, and deep concern about the club's direction. Losing to a League Two team is bad enough, but losing when your players show no fight or pride is much worse. Fans can accept defeats when the team gives everything but comes up short. They cannot accept defeats when players do not seem to care. The penalty shootout provided some entertainment, but it could not disguise the fact that United had been outplayed by part-time footballers for most of the match. Questions about investment. Many fans are now questioning whether the money spent on new signings has been wasted if the fundamental problems remain unchanged. What is the point of buying expensive attacking players if they cannot perform against League Two opposition? What is the point of tactical innovations if players will not implement them with proper intensity? These are legitimate questions that United's leadership needs to address quickly and honestly. The patience problem. United fans have been incredibly patient with the club's rebuilding process over recent years. They have supported multiple managers, accepted disappointing results, and continued to believe that better times were coming. But patience has limits, and results like the Grimsby defeat test even the most loyal supporters' willingness to keep believing in the process. What needs to change at United? The culture problem. Amorim's comments suggest that United's problems are cultural rather than tactical. The club needs players who understand what it means to represent Manchester United and who are willing to give everything in every match. This type of cultural change cannot happen overnight, and it certainly cannot be achieved just by buying new players. It requires fundamental changes in how the club operates and what standards are expected from everyone. The leadership question. When players consistently fail to show basic professional standards, questions arise about leadership both on and off the pitch. Does United have enough leaders in the dressing room who can demand better standards from their teammates? Do the club's executives and management structure support the manager effectively? These leadership questions need to be answered before any real progress can be made. The accountability issue. One of the biggest problems at United over recent years has been a lack of accountability when things go wrong. Players who underperform continue to get selected. Poor attitudes are tolerated for too long. Mistakes are repeated without consequences. Until this changes, United will continue to see the same problems regardless of who the manager is or which players they sign. The road ahead. Immediate challenges. United face Burnley at home on Saturday in their next Premier League match, and the pressure will be enormous after the Grimsby humiliation. How will the players respond to Amorim's public criticism? Will they show the fight and intensity that was missing against Grimsby, or will the problems continue? The Burnley match could be crucial for determining whether the Grimsby defeat was a wake-up call or a sign of deeper problems that cannot be easily fixed. The transfer window closing. With the transfer window closing soon, United have limited time to make any additional signings that might help address their problems. However, Amorim's comments suggest that more players are not the solution to United's current issues. The problems seem to be with mentality and culture rather than squad quality. Long-term solutions. If United are serious about solving their problems, they need to think beyond quick fixes and short-term solutions. This might mean being more ruthless about moving on players who do not meet the required standards, regardless of their reputation or transfer value. It might also mean implementing stricter discipline and accountability measures throughout the club to ensure that everyone understands what is expected of them. The Amorim dilemma. A manager under pressure. Ruben Amorim came to United with a reputation as one of the most promising young managers in Europe. His success at Sporting CP suggested that he could be the coach to finally solve United's problems. But the Grimsby defeat and his reactions afterward show a manager who is struggling to cope with the unique challenges of managing Manchester United. The pressure at United is unlike anything most managers experience elsewhere. The media attention, fan expectations, and internal politics create an environment that can break even strong personalities. The support system. One crucial factor in Amorim's future success will be the support he receives from United's leadership structure. Omar Barada and Jason Wilcox, who convinced Amorim to stay during his February crisis, need to provide more than just transfer promises. They need to help create an environment where the manager can succeed. This might mean being more supportive in public, more ruthless with underperforming players, or more effective in their communication with both manager and squad. The time factor. The biggest question facing United is how much time Amorim needs and deserves to turn things around. Modern football is notoriously impatient, and managers rarely get long to prove themselves. But United's problems are so deep that they might require years rather than months to solve properly. The challenge is balancing the need for patience with the reality that results like Grimsby cannot continue to happen without consequences. What this means for United fans. Managing expectations. After the Grimsby defeat and Amorim's comments, United fans need to seriously adjust their expectations for the season ahead. This team is clearly not ready to compete for major honors, and even qualification for European competitions might be challenging given their current form and mentality. The focus needs to shift from immediate success to gradual improvement and cultural change, which is much less exciting but probably more realistic. The patience test. United fans are facing their biggest test of patience yet. Supporting the club through this crisis will require incredible loyalty and understanding. There will be more disappointing results, more embarrassing defeats, and more moments when you wonder if things will ever improve. But walking away or losing faith will only make the problems worse. United need their fans now more than ever, even when the team does not deserve that support. The reality check. The Grimsby defeat serves as a brutal reality check for anyone who thought United's problems could be solved quickly or easily. This club has deep-rooted issues that have persisted through multiple managers, coaching staff changes, and player turnover. Fixing them will require time, patience, and probably more pain before things get better. Lessons from the crisis. Money cannot buy everything. United have spent hundreds of millions of pounds on players over recent years, but the Grimsby defeat shows that money alone cannot solve football problems. Desire, intensity, pride, and professional standards cannot be purchased in the transfer market. These qualities come from within players and are developed through proper culture and leadership. Until United address these fundamental issues, they could sign the best players in the world and still lose to League Two teams. The importance of character. The contrast between Grimsby's players and United's was stark and revealing. Grimsby's part-time footballers showed more fight, more organization, and more pride than United's millionaire superstars. This highlights the importance of character in football and the danger of prioritizing talent over mentality when building a squad. Cultural change takes time. Real cultural change at football clubs takes years, not months. It requires consistent messages, consistent standards, and consistent consequences for those who do not meet expectations. United have tried to shortcut this process by changing managers and buying new players, but the Grimsby defeat shows that these approaches have not worked. The wider context. Premier League performance. The Grimsby defeat becomes even more concerning when viewed alongside United's start to the Premier League season. With just 1 point from their opening 2 league matches, United are already facing questions about their ability to compete at the required level in their primary competition. If United cannot beat League 2 teams or earn points against Premier League opponents, where exactly can they find confidence and momentum? Historical perspective. United fans might find some comfort in remembering that even great clubs go through difficult periods and eventually recover. However, they should also remember that recovery requires more than just hoping things will get better. It requires honest assessment of problems, difficult decisions about personnel, and commitment to long-term solutions rather than quick fixes. The competition factor. While United struggle with basic issues like intensity and desire, their rivals continue to strengthen and improve their squads. Every week that United spend dealing with these fundamental problems is another week that other clubs move further ahead in their development. The gap between United and the top teams in English football continues to grow, making the eventual recovery even more challenging. What happens next? The Burnley test. United's next match against Burnley at Old Trafford will be crucial for several reasons. First, it will show whether the players are capable of responding positively to Amorim's public criticism or whether the problems will continue. Second, it will test whether the Grimsby defeat was an isolated incident or part of a broader pattern of poor performances. Third, it will provide the first indication of how United fans will react to the team after such an embarrassing result. Transfer window decisions. With limited time left in the transfer window, United face difficult decisions about whether to pursue additional signings or focus on working with their current squad. Given Amorim's comments about not being able to change 22 players again, it seems likely that the club will stick with what they have and try to develop solutions from within. However, if the problems continue, pressure will grow to make changes in January or next summer. The long-term vision. United need to decide whether they still believe in Amorim's long-term vision or whether they need to consider alternative approaches. This decision will affect everything from transfer planning to academy development to commercial strategies. The club cannot continue to change direction every time they face difficulties, but they also cannot ignore fundamental problems that prevent progress. The bottom line. The Grimsby defeat and Ruben Amorim's reactions afterward represent one of the lowest points in Manchester United's recent history. When your manager admits he has nothing left to say after losing to a League 2 team, you know the problems run much deeper than tactics, formations, or individual player quality. United's issues are cultural, mental, and institutional. They affect every aspect of how the club operates and how players approach their professional responsibilities. Solving these problems will require more than buying new players or changing coaches. It will require fundamental changes in standards, expectations, and accountability throughout the organization. For United fans, this is an incredibly difficult time that tests every aspect of their loyalty and patience. Supporting the club through this crisis will require understanding that recovery might take much longer than anyone hoped. However, crisis can also create opportunity. Sometimes teams need to hit rock bottom before they can begin the real work of rebuilding properly. The question now is whether United's leadership has the courage to make the difficult decisions required for genuine change, and whether the fans have the patience to support the club through the painful process that lies ahead. Stay strong with United News. Thank you for reading our honest analysis of one of the darkest nights in recent Manchester United history. This is why United News exists, to tell you the truth about our club, even when that truth is difficult to hear. We do not hide from problems or pretend everything is fine when it clearly is not. When United are struggling, we investigate why. When managers lose faith in their players, we explain what that means. When crisis hits Old Trafford, we provide the analysis and context you need to understand what is really happening. Other websites might give you false hope or meaningless speculation. We give you honest journalism that respects your intelligence and your dedication to this club. Stay with us as we continue to follow this story and every other development that affects Manchester United's future. The next few weeks and months will be crucial for determining the direction of our club. Keep supporting United through this difficult period, and keep trusting Unite United News to give you the complete picture of everything that matters at Old Trafford. United we stand, even when standing becomes difficult. United we face the truth, even when the truth is painful. Together, we will get through this crisis and hopefully emerge stronger on the other side.